Hello, everyone. Today's topic is picky eaters versus problem feeders. How can we improve their diet? Parents often ask me when they're in consultation with me, what do we do about our picky eater, our picky toddler? Whenever we have a child in the office who's a picky eater, the parents often express a concern. I'm really worried about my child. Is he or she growing well? She won't eat anything from this particular food group, or it's always a fight at dinner every time and every day. It's too embarrassing to go out with friends, some parents will say, and extended families as well, because my child won't eat anything new. Does this sound familiar to you? Hi, I'm Dr. Juliana Nahas, and I'm here to help parents of children who have difficulty and who have chronic conditions so that they can restore normal health, growth, and development. It's important to know that a picky eating habit is extremely common, not something unique to just your child. It's especially common between the ages of 1 and 4, and most children outgrow it after the age of 5. About 1 out of 6 children don't have any issues eating, and those parents are lucky. However, most children will say if they have such a child, he will eat anything that doesn't eat him first. Does this seem to be like your child? I don't think so, because you're here listening to this talk, right? So most of us have a picky eater if we're on this topic. Let me know your thoughts and your questions while we go through this topic today. I'd love to be able to help you. So ask me anything on your mind in the comments below. For most of you parents, it's normal to have a child who will only eat 30 different foods in their repertoire. And most picky eaters will show a pattern of likes and dislikes. There are kids that don't like any vegetables. That's probably the most common type of picky eating. Other kids don't like meat. This is what is most asked about and what worries most parents. And there are kids who don't like dairy or milk. It can really vary. And they may not like the food to touch other food, or they may like the food at a certain temperature or at a certain consistency. For example, raw carrots versus cooked carrots, or warm milk versus cold milk. Otherwise, they like other foods and other food groups and are usually growing and developing normally. So it's really just one food group that they're objecting to. So for picky eaters, it's fairly easy to make substitutions. If your kid dislikes meat, give them other sources of protein from dairy and vegetable sources while you work on expanding their palate. For example, you can puree chicken and squash and mix with eggs to make pancakes. That kind of hides the chicken flavor into the pancake mix, and they can't even tell what they're getting. There are several cooking strategies that you can learn, and I will make some recommendations when you come in for a consultation. Let me know in the comments what you've tried to get around this issue with your child, because your suggestions and ideas may help other parents struggling with this. If your kids dislike vegetables, offer extra servings of fruits, or maybe even better yet, lump the vegetables and fruits together and find ways to create a new recipe, right? To create a new topic or new food that is similar to foods they already like. So sometimes it's a texture thing. If the child prefers kale chips over cooked kale, that may be a solution. Or they may prefer baked carrot chips instead of, cooked carrots because it's crunchier and not mushy. So when would a picky eater be classified as a problem feeder? That is an important distinction to make, and it does separate, if you will, the types of therapies we recommend as pediatricians. Most problem feeders have less than 20 ingredients or food items that they will eat. So they're very, very restricted. Some kids only have 2 or 3 items that they will eat, and it's a very, very bland diet. So you can tell right away that these children are in a different category. They are very finicky about any food touching the other food items on their plate. They are very sensitive to the temperature of the food and to the consistency of the food item on their plate. They usually have other sensory and developmental disorders. In fact, 80% of children with a sensory or developmental disorder are problem feeders. So biochemical factors seem to be an underlying mechanism, and therefore there can be something that we can do and address, okay? They have other sensory concerns like being sensitive to textures of clothing, loud noises, touch, and fabrics. So food is just another area of that sensory developmental issue. They may only like pizza or hot dogs or mac and cheese or chicken nuggets, a very, very bland diet, and have strong phobic reactions to new foods. The strong preferences to the texture of the food, like soft or smooth versus crunchy, may limit what they eat. Some kids are so picky that they will only eat a certain chicken nugget from a specific restaurant, but not from any other place. These kids have a motor deficit in their facial and oral muscles due to brain inflammation. And with speech therapy, we can strengthen these muscles. As pediatricians, we look at the growth chart to see if these children are growing well. But this is only one measure of nutrition and doesn't mean that the child is not malnourished at some level because he or she isn't getting the variety of nutrients from their diet. So it is important not to confuse, calories with nutrition. As a functional pediatrician, I can test and I can check for the inflammation and biochemical triggers and deficiencies in these children. And I can work with the parents to reduce the triggers while we optimize the diet and nutrition of the child. There's a lot of stress involved with eating, and meal times can be so stressful for toddlers and older children as well who are picky and problem feeders. But if you feel extremely stressed around mealtime and cannot go out to eat because of your child's pickiness, since she only eats a certain set of foods, then we need to evaluate her for problem feeding. Maybe there's an anxiety around certain foods, and maybe there are sensory and developmental issues. So we need to evaluate the toddler or child and address the issue with a therapist, such as a speech or feeding therapist or an occupational therapist. Picky eaters may have a fear of trying new things. You, as a parent, can help them through it by doing desensitization treatments at home and making it fun. If you want your child to eat broccoli, tell your child you don't have to eat it, but it will be on your plate. And the next time, they need to touch it with their hands or fork only. Then the next time, they need to put it up to their lips and just maybe taste it. The next time they need to chew it. They don't have to swallow though. And then the next time they need to swallow just a small bite, etc., etc. And try that with different varieties of foods until you break the ice. Some kids have a strong food preference. So I would say this technique of desensitization may take more time than you'd like, but I would say about 45% of children experience mealtime problems. So it's a very common phenomenon. And the thing is to understand, which is the child who's just a picky eater, but is growing and thriving and getting enough nutrition, and who is the problem feeder who is malnourished and actually needs a lot of services. This typically resolves with some education about the meal. So if you can show your child what you're doing, maybe modify how you're presenting and preparing the food, and making mealtime fun. So play with carrot swords and make faces with the shapes of the different vegetables. Be creative and playful, and sometimes adding color and texture that really brings a picky eater to the table some curiosity. Picky eaters are also influenced by their peers, whereas problem feeders are insensitive to social cues around eating and are very inflexible and won't eat less preferred foods, even when hungry. So for them, for the problem feeders, we have to gradually introduce them to new foods before taking away their base foods. Remember, family time is a time for modeling and fellowship. So parents, model for your children by eating the foods that you want them to eat. Always offer 3 meals and 2 snacks for young children to keep their blood sugar normal. You can follow the choosemyplate.gov distribution on the plate. So you can model the child's plate according to the diagram on the choosemyplate.gov website. If your child has a prescribed diet for allergies, such as a gluten-free, casein-free diet, or your family's a vegetarian, you will need to learn how to substitute safe ingredients so your child can get a balanced nutrition for good health. And I know that parents can feel overwhelmed with how to do that. So talk to me or a nutritionist on how to gradually make the shift. Don't go it alone. There's a lot of help out there. I'm often asked, does my child need a vitamin? And the answer is probably yes, because if they're problem feeders, then we know for sure they are deficient in minerals and vitamins. And even if they're just picky eaters, they probably aren't eating a very, very well-rounded diet anyway. So it's always a good idea to supplement with a vitamin mineral gummy, or if they can swallow a pill, that's even better. For example, if a child is deficient in zinc, which is a mineral, everything can taste bland and pretty much unappealing. So they want and crave more exciting foods like those chicken nuggets that have MSG in them, unfortunately, or hot dogs. If they're just picky about one food group, it wouldn't hurt to add the vitamin, like I mentioned before, while working on combining the foods and increasing their repertoire and their palate. I would not recommend Pediasure. It's an easy pathway to just say, well, we're just not going to eat food. Let's just give them Pediasure 3 times a day. But it's really not a good meal. It's very high in dairy and fructose corn syrup, which are bad for us. And so I'm concerned that we use Pediasure as the only meal replacement and not really work on true feeding therapy. We need to do feeding therapy. Kids need diversity in their diet because foods also feed their gut microbiome and enrich a healthy diversity of bacterial species, which greatly influences brain function, mood, focus, and memory. This is the brain-gut connection that you hear about. And I am a strong proponent of using diet and food as a way to build health. Food at the end of your fork can be as strong as medicine. And when we can learn and teach our children to eat right, we can really overcome a lot of debilitating chronic conditions. Kids who can't sit still have a weak proprioceptive sensory in their vestibular system in their inner ear. So we have this locating sensor in our inner ear that helps us balance, helps us know where to place our feet when we walk and how to, when we're sitting, we know that we're sitting, etc. So if they can't feel their body's location in space, then they have to move around. So that's why these children are so hyper. They gotta constantly move so that they can know where their body is in space. They can feel quite ungrounded and anxious when sitting, so they don't like to be still for very long. Allow them to fidget around the table at mealtime in order to reduce this anxiety. In summary, what can parents do to introduce new foods and get them on the accepted food list? 1, lower your expectations and don't pressure. It takes 30+ exposures to something new before a child will accept or like it. It takes time, and repetition is key. So is having patience. Number 2, offer small amounts at first. They're more likely to try it. Number 3, make it fun. Let the child play games with and around the food and mealtime, and/or involve your child in the food preparation. Studies show that kids eat more of the foods they have prepared themselves. Number 4, allow the child to explore and even spit out the food just to get familiar with it. He or she may touch the food with their hands and fork. He or she may bring it to the lips. He or she may chew and spit it out. He or she may swallow. And so this is a gradual thing. Number 5, food pairing. Example, broccoli with cheese or other food pairs that go along together. Provide the food your child likes in addition to one new food. So always give them the basic, maybe it's chicken nuggets, and then add the broccoli on the side. Number 6, food blending. So smoothies, soups, sauces. I like the pancake idea because a lot of our problem feeders have texture issues. So use that in your cooking. Number 7, get creative by trying the new food in the child's preferred texture. So for example, crunchy versus smooth texture. Number 8, keep mealtime calm. Visualize your child eating and enjoying their new food, and don't get sucked into their frenzy. Number 9, the whole family can participate and everyone sit around the table. The social cues and rewards are tremendous. And number 10, choose rewards and encouragements that are non-food based. So for example, a star sticker chart, a small toy, an activity like coloring or going to the park. Always use rewards that are not related to the exact activity you are asking them to master. I hope this talk gave you lots of information and ideas to help your children if they're picky eaters or problem feeders. And if you want to dive in deeper with me, you can find me at covingtonpediatrics.com, and this is my phone number, and our address will be listed on the website. So I hope to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. Have a great day, and here's to your health.